Hello and welcome to the e-commerce leader series, a podcast dedicated to helping founders and senior leaders navigate the future of online retail with AI. I'm your co-host, Bryan Kinghorn, joined today by my co-host, Eric Bidinger. How are you, Eric?
Good morning. I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you. But most importantly, we have our guest with us today. We've got Jen Van Wart. I hope I pronounced that properly. If not, you can correct me. Twigs, a leader in the fashion space, which we'll hear all about very soon. But Jen, thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into our main topic of conversation, would you mind giving our listeners a brief introduction to you, your business, and your background, please?
Absolutely. So my business is it's an omnichannel fashion business, primarily focused on women's ready-to-wear clothing and accessories, and primarily the contemporary women's market and advanced contemporary. That being defined as like the tier of fashion right below designer. My background is such that I graduated from college back in the early 90s with a degree in economics and finance, and worked the first chapter of my career in finance as a money trader for Citibank. And along the way, transitioned to being a parent of 3 young kids and wanting to get out of the New York City area and wanting to transition out of the Wall Street environment. And prioritizing my kids, I moved back to the Midwest where I had grown up, something I never, ever thought I would do. And upon re-entry to the Madison, Wisconsin area, which happened to coincide with 9/11, at literally the very day of 9/11, my moving company showed up. And it was a tragic day. I lost some dear friends that day. And I was wandering around Madison, Wisconsin, looking for retail therapy, and there wasn't any. And I realized then that there was an opportunity here. This was an underserved community, dynamic community of people from around the world and around the country who were living in this really fantastic city with not enough of what I thought women here deserved. And so I started a fashion company that specializes in catering to actually really a multi-generational clientele. And it is now 25 years old, which is crazy. And it has grown enormously. And I'm really happy to report we've survived the Great Recession and a pandemic. And I swear, I hope there's nothing else like that coming at me. And I'm finally at a point where the 2 storefronts that we have are hopefully going to be scaled to another additional 2 to 3 stores in the next 18 to 24 months. And that is my intent. But our e-com business is also continuing to grow. It currently makes up about 20% of our business, but I would like that to be a much bigger number. And that's where we're at the moment. Yeah.
Nice. And in regards to, team size, scale of business, how has that looked over the years? Where are you at now, and how has that progressed over the years?
It has, my team has grown and over the years, and certainly the role of certain key players has really grown in importance. So we do our own in-house photography. We used to do our own in-house photography editing, but we now outsource that to a company based in India. Which also is something I never thought I would do. But, what I've learned is you never say never. I never thought I'd move back to the Midwest. I never thought I would be in the fashion industry instead of the finance industry. You learn to adapt and to pivot along the way. And, similarly, we're now looking at, instead of hiring an additional person to serve a need that we have, we are looking at using AI to lighten our workload of myself. I carry the CEO title, and my right arm carries the COO title. And she and I both spend far too much time working on a couple of really, key parts of our jobs that they take too much of our attention away from the other parts of our jobs that are sort of denying us the time that we need to focus on the really, key pieces of scaling. That's really what we want to be doing. Our goal is to, in the next, 18 months, have an additional door open, and then 18 months after that, a second one. And so I'm talking to venture capitalists. I'm talking to, people who are helping me write a business plan. I'm talking to leasing agents, and I'm talking to lawyers who are helping me negotiate leases. And all of this stuff is more important in many ways than the intricacies of buying an important season like fall. And I can't spend 6 weeks immersed in the fall buying cycle. So that's a really good example of where I am introducing the concept of using artificial intelligence within our workflow to try to alleviate some of that work burden.
Yeah. And you've totally brought me onto that topic straight away, which is great. So you've mentioned one particular aspect of your role, the buying, process. So how could you see AI specifically helping you within that task?
So it's something that I'm just starting to investigate, and I've been approached by a couple of different companies, and I'm trying to figure out which one I want to work with and which one is going to serve my needs best. I think it's a really new territory. It's a within this field. And there aren't that many e-com businesses that are similar to mine that I think are run by people who are comfortable with technology and the idea of embracing it. And I think a lot of owners and founders tend to enjoy the aspect of buying so much that they don't want to let go of it. And I'm kind of the opposite of that. And I also have, I'm happy to work 60, 70 hours a week, but I also want to have a life. And so, recently I've come to the conclusion that it's time to, even for myself, to let go of certain things and try to work smarter, not harder. And AI is definitely the kind of thing that should be able to help me do that. So a really good example is something like in the buying portion of my job. I spend 3 weeks leading up to an important buying cycle like spring or fall, analyzing what vendors performed well, what vendors didn't. And those are really important numbers to take a look at because they also dictate your schedule. Do you really want to dedicate a 2-hour chunk of your day in the middle of the market to go spend time with a vendor that didn't really perform that well for you? And why didn't they perform well? Was it an anomaly or was it a real, failure? And should you have a real conversation with them before you attend market? Because that's going to be a much better use of your time. And then drilling down in a more granular level, if you had an okay margin, but it wasn't stellar, what didn't sell, what did sell, so getting into the categories of merchandise. Did we do really well with, tops, but skirts, failed? Then we need to know all of that before we head into market. I'm the kind of buyer that doesn't leave, I don't leave orders at market. A lot of my competitors do, but I don't consider them to be very sophisticated buyers. For a company my size, I buy in a much more sophisticated way than a lot of other companies that are independently owned. I buy more from in a way that would be similar more to a major, somebody like a Shopbop or somebody like a Moda Operandi or something like that, where we do a ton of analysis beforehand and a lot of analysis during market and then even more following that. And that's why it takes such a long period of time. And I think that we are at a point where in the past, there have been companies, probably the most notable of which would be Management One, that would offer to help assist with some of this analysis and number crunching and directional, consulting. But it came at a very high price, and it wasn't something that I necessarily felt comfortable ever engaging with. We've met with them many times over the last few years, and I've met with other retailers who have engaged their resources. But I don't necessarily feel comfortable having someone else come in and tell me, okay, you should have X% of your buy be tops and X% of your buy be sweaters. And I'm going to charge you $3,000 a month to tell you that. Because I don't really trust that person as much as I trust my own instincts and my own abilities to crunch my own numbers. And it's not that I'm a control freak. It's just that I don't know. I don't know if they really necessarily know my business and my customer as well as they should to be able to like really give me that information. And I know this might sound weird and a lot of other people may not agree with it, but I would trust AI before I would trust a consultant sitting in Denver, Colorado, who doesn't really understand my customer or the women's clothing market.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing you've just said, and that's, I suppose, one of the perks of something like Luca. What we're building is that it knows your business better than anyone else, including you probably. So being able to make some of these decisions, simple manual tasks. I'd imagine up till this point, all of your part of that buying process, even something simple as figuring out a margin on a product, has been quite a manual task for you to carry out. But now having that at the press of a button to be able to have that across however many SKUs that you have is a really powerful thing and it will massively help your time. Like as an example, that just brought me, how many SKUs do you have?
So many. It's impossible to keep track of. And the other thing that's really interesting and kind of unique about my business is that a lot of those consultants, they want to work with companies that just reorder the same thing. And we don't do that. We don't have a lot of core products. We're always getting something new in. Like every single day we get shipments. And very few of those things are ever going to get reordered. And that's a really important piece of this, because all of those more analog models where you're dealing with like human beings sitting in a cubicle somewhere trying to analyze your stuff and charging you money to do it on an hourly basis, there's no way that they can really give you enough information to really be able to effectively build your next buy off of, in my opinion. And that's where I think, again, AI, like it's processing all of that data in such a way that it is going to be useful. It's going to be able to process so much more rapidly. And then it's also going to tell you when you're wrong. You're absolutely right, Brian. I mean, like the number of times that we think, a great example, like one of the things that we argue about all the time is denim lengths. This is probably something that you guys aren't going to really understand, or it's not going to resonate with you, but women, yeah, right. I mean, like you guys just go in and you're like, okay, I'm a 36-30 or I'm a 34-32 or whatever, like that's just what you do. But women, it's different lengths. It's like, oh, I want an ankle length. I want a crop length. I want this. I want that. Well, the average height. So everybody who works for me is like 4 inches shorter than me. And they're constantly complaining about like when I buy longer inseam jeans, right? 31 to 33 inch inseam jeans. And they're like, nobody wants this, Jen, because then everybody's got to go and have them altered after they buy these $300 jeans and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, okay. But there's other women with long legs too. And they come in and they can't find them if we buy nothing but the short inseams. And so we battle this out all the time. And so it's nice to be able to just like go in and, Jesus, hang on a second, and just run a report. And obviously I can do that in my own software. But to be able to use AI, to be able to just say, hey, what's our best selling? What are we keeping margins on the best? Like, what do we have to discount? And denim is definitely the kind of thing where, especially because it's such an investment. Every time you buy a style of denim, we have to stock it in both stores. You have to stock it from a size 23 to a 32. Depth in more than probably 5 different sizes, and so it's a huge commitment. You pick up one style of denim, that's a $6,000 commitment. That's a lot. And if that doesn't sell well and you don't maintain a good margin on that, it's not, that hurts. So yeah, that's a really good example of where being able to use AI to tell us how we've done in previous seasons, and based on that, what we think we should be doing for upcoming seasons. That's what I hope I can find a program to help me do. Yeah.
Historically, Jen, on something like this, so all of this was done. So I guess in essence, like the way I think about your business is your taste is the product. You curate the collection almost on behalf of your clients. Historically, you've done this curation out of your personal tastes, obviously, but has it been data driven or is it mostly gut feel? How does that work?
It's both. I would say the product itself is always going to be my curation, and that of my assistant buyer, based on trends, based on the, mostly, trends in the industry, but also my vision, with, of course, taking into consideration what my customers want. And so I don't see using AI to help me dictate what I want to curate in terms of the total selection, and the idea of what the nuances of Twigs are. But what I do see it helping to dictate is quantities of those things, and that is going to be very useful.
And on this note, exactly, that it's exactly right. I don't think AI can help you curate taste. At the bare minimum, I don't think it would be able to do that. It would just be able to help you augment it. But you're right. Like the key here is ordering the right quantities by having the right forecasts of, how much you're going to be able to sell, how much is going to be saddled in inventory that you can't shift. If you were to quantify, like your expectations of, like, in an ideal world, if you could deploy AI today, someone would come in and say, look, Jen, I have this amazing, black box that can help you in this process. Like, what would you expect you'd be able to, how would you quantify it? And what would be the measurable impacts that you would measure, whatever this tool is doing against your baseline today?
It's hard to say, because it's still feeling very esoteric to me. I'm still trying to figure out, like, what it would look like and what it would be able to do. The other thing is like, we've been focusing on the buying aspect of it, but there's a couple of other areas that I'm really hoping that I can utilize AI to help me fine tune my business. And a huge part of it is the digital marketing aspects. I mean, we right now are utilizing a consultant called Logical Positioning, and we use them to help us try to manage our digital marketing budget for Google and Meta. On that budget ranges anywhere from a bare minimum of $5,000 a month to $15,000 a month based on the time of the year. And that's just the money that we're putting towards the campaigns. We're spending more money with them as consultants. And then on top of that, I'm spending more money as payroll dollars for the in-house production of those assets and collateral. And all of that, I feel, could be streamlined with AI. And I know it could be. And, and there's a huge trust fall with that too. Every single time I get on the phone with these guys, from Logical Positioning, do I not trust them as people? I wouldn't go that far, obviously. Like, I think he's a perfectly reasonable, decent human being, or I wouldn't be working with him. But, you know, I mean, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sense of it. Is it my number one, you know, area of expertise? Absolutely not. And I have these two young women who work for me who are like, you know, they are like millennial Gen Z women as well, both very well educated. But this is not their area of expertise. It's not within their wheelhouse. And we're all really trying to come up the learning curve. Not that we're trying to manage it. We're just trying to better understand the people who are managing it to make sure that we are holding them accountable and getting the best out of them and getting the best return on investment. I mean, we're all smart women and we're all just like, what did he just say? I'm sorry, bleep that out of the podcast.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. We're all adults here.
Our debriefs after the meetings are just like, I thought I understood, but I don't get it. And I just spent another $5,000 to send both of them to a certificate course at UW based just on this. And they've been in it for 2 months. There's like 2 weeks left. I haven't heard anything productive from either one of them. And I know it's not because they're not smart women. It's just because like this whole thing is like a giant nut that is, you know, almost impossible to really harness.
You know what it is? It's a fire hose of data.
Yeah.
And in that fire hose, if you're not an expert, you don't know what actually matters and what doesn't matter. So the signal to noise ratio, if you're not, I mean, you get presented 1 million dashboards, 1 million data points. If you don't know where to focus your attention, it's just noise. But somewhere in there is very good signal. And unfortunately, with outside consultants, it's not a question of honesty, obviously not. It's a question of misaligned interests, right? And because I'm pretty sure they get paid on the volume of campaigns that you're doing on Meta and Google. So their incentive is obviously for you to spend more. And obviously the incentive of Meta and Google is to tell you that you should spend more. But it's so typical of people in your situation, right? It's not your wheelhouse to be a marketing expert, and that is clearly a number one use case for AI, right? Because it's so good at ingesting all that data, weeding out what matters, what doesn't matter, tailor it to specifically your business, your situation, you know, your tastes, and then have an impartial maker alongside you who can just tell you, look, Jen, this is maybe you shouldn't do this, and you should do that instead.
Yeah, absolutely. So those two parts of my business are the two that I'm most interested in incorporating AI into. Yeah. And then lastly, you know, if you search in ChatGPT or any other, you know, AI search for my business, I have absolutely no idea what comes up. I mean, virtually nothing. And so that's another thing I need to get on top of.
And it's called generative engine optimization. So let me tell you, it's the biggest thing out there, and it's also the most mysterious thing out there. Like, no one knows how to. I'm saying no one, that's not true. There's a few people in Silicon Valley who are starting to figure out how to do it well. Mm-hmm. The idea is, obviously, if someone based in, you know, your geographical catch area types, you know, best store for women fashion, etc. Clearly, you should come out in ChatGPT. Sorry, clearly ChatGPT should say Twigs. If it's not going to happen automatically, there's ways to make sure that this happens. But essentially, you're gaming the ChatGPT algorithm, just like we used to game the Google algorithm. It's not easy. There are ways to do it, primitive ways to do it, but it's getting more and more sophisticated. But the good news for you is that we're at a stage of development where you can rank above Louis Vuitton, for example, or Hermes. Mm-hmm. Know how to do this properly. Like, someone would say, I want to buy a very high-end, whatever, XYZ piece of clothing, and then ChatGPT would rank you higher than whichever luxury brand. That's still possible today. So it's definitely something that you should explore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's on the list. Those are my top 3 things.
I think it's super interesting, Jen, because you've listed there, and this is different for every e-commerce founder, by the way. And what we found so far is that a lot of the founders we've spoken to, they've got their marketing, they've got the AI use of market, they've got AI throughout their use of digital marketing, which is really interesting. But you're maybe just slightly, not there yet. But you've straight away in 3 buckets: the buying journey, the digital marketing, and then the GEO, SEO, AEO, whatever you want to call it, side of the business as well, is 3 huge, opportunities for you, like massive opportunities that takes us right back to the start of the conversation when you said that your focus over the next, 18 months is to scale your business. So I think what you need, and what we can potentially discuss with you, post this podcast, is how can we help you leverage the use of AI to work, firstly on those 3 buckets, and that's before we start speaking about finance and analytics and email marketing and list off every other area of the business that AI can help you. So yeah, you've got it. I'm excited for you right now, Jen, because you are going to be blown away by what AI can help you do within your business. We've seen it, with lots of our clients already. So I suppose if you were to narrow that down, what would be your one singular focus if I was to give you the next 3 months to utilize one of these? Which bucket of these would be your first priority over the next 3 months, let's say?
I'd want to talk to you more about the finance analytics.
Okay.
A little bit more about that, because that's definitely something that is top of mind for me right now as I wander into the daunting world of venture capitalists. So that's something that I'd want to learn a lot more about. Digital marketing is something that is a huge, it's probably something that I should prioritize before the buying aspects. Those would probably be my top 2, because I think those are probably the 2 most financially beneficial areas for me to look at.
And have you raised funding already for this business, or is this your first?
No, I'm completely privately funded right now.
Yeah, cool, interesting.
Yeah,
nice. Okay, and then I suppose looking further ahead, then, you've briefly touched upon, your plans to open new physical stores. If I was to ask you, on a slightly longer vision ahead, where do you see Twigs over the next 3 to 5 years, and how? Well, I think we know how AI can help you, but just aside from AI, where can you see the business in that period?
I think 5 years from now, I absolutely want to have 3 more doors open and have the e-com business substantially, I want it tripled in business in its current size, and I at that point would like to look for a buyer for the whole package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's my goal.
So there's an element of getting the business ready for exit as well over that period.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think you'll be able to get there without the use of AI?
I think I would be able to do it, but I'd have to hire another really high-level individual, and I'd have to rely heavily on them and hope that I found the perfect person who had a solid work ethic and a really sharp brain. And do you know how many times I've interviewed people and thought I hired that and then was like, oh shit, no. It turns out they're not me, and I'm not going to find another me, and I'm better off finding a robot. I mean, in today's world, I am so excited about AI because that's the thing. It's like my COO, I love her to death and she's amazing, but she's a young mom with 2 kids, and I don't want her working on the weekends. I don't want her burning out. I don't want her working in the evenings. That's me. That's what I do. But I'm also the founder owner, and so that's fine if I do that. But I also would like to have a life as well. And I have fought hard to finally have a life of my own. personal side, you can edit this out, but I just ended a 3-year-long divorce that just finally ended, thank God. Yeah, and so, you know, at this point, I'm like, okay, you know, my friends are all like, Jen, you need to actually develop a personal life because all you do is work. It's kind of got to like stop. And so I think they're right. And I think it's time to finally like, you know, balance my own life out a little bit better. All I do is hear all the people who work for me talking about work-life balance. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that probably actually is something I should do too. Yeah, I think AI is probably the answer to that for me. So
yeah, it really is actually. Because everything that you aspire to, which is to kind of clone yourself in a way that's automated and allows you to actually enjoy life outside of work a little bit. I think AI is amazing to do that. I think the flip side is that the cost of actually not implementing AI is that, especially for you, if I were to summarize a little bit where I see you going, is growing this business quite a lot over the next 5 years, prepping it for an exit. If you don't leverage technology today, you're just going to get more and more drowned. I mean, if today you're gasping for air, imagine what it's going to be like 3 years from now when your business is twice the size.
Well, and if I was a venture capitalist, I would look at me, if I didn't, you know, bring in the appropriate technology. If I looked at me in a year from now, I would say, what are you doing? You're obviously not the business, you know, leader that I would want you to be. And you know, yeah, I'd be underserving the business. I would be realizing the potential. No, I agree. I think I think it's absolutely the time to be doing it.
That's why you should take money. And I say that's why you shouldn't take VC money. And I for many reasons, and we can talk after this podcast about other ways to finance yourself.
Let's talk about that, because I really don't want to. I have a friend in PE and I don't trust any of them, and he keeps trying to tell me he's one of the good ones. I'm like, I don't think there is no such thing. Sorry. Including you.
We'll talk after the podcast. I spent 17 years in private equity. I can tell you that your friend is right.
Yeah.
No, sorry, that you're right.
I'm right. He's wrong.
Yeah, I suppose that to break that down and summarize, I think what you need, Jen, or certainly something we talk about quite a lot, is an AI co-founder that doesn't sleep, doesn't eat,
exactly,
doesn't complain, just gets on with it, knows your business better than you. I think that is something that you definitely need, and that is absolutely something that Lupa can help you with. I suppose before we wrap up the podcast, Jen, it's been absolutely incredible to hear from you and your business. Where can our listeners find you if they want to follow you? Is that LinkedIn?
Yes.
Instagram? Where's the best place to find you?
I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. You can go to our website, www.shoptwigs.com, and you can learn a little bit more about it from our About Us portion of the site. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Well,
and follow us on Instagram, obviously. Yeah.
Follow on Instagram. We'll put all those links in the show notes, so that's no need to worry about that. But absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, Jen. Really enjoyed the conversation. And for the rest of our listeners, we look forward to speaking to you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Jen.